A new WWE signing has been revealed, and yes, we are going to talk about some major news surrounding AEW and everything else that's going on in WWE. Some really big topics, but as always, I'm going to put the timestamps in the description down below. I actually want to kick things off with AEW because Andrew Zarian put out a very, very interesting tweet, but this all makes so much sense. Andrew Zarian tweeted out, AEW Dark and Dark Elevation have ended for the time being. This in part has to do with AEW signing a new deal for AEW Collision to air on Saturdays. Part of the new deal is that AEW wrestling content will exclusively air on Warner Bros. Discovery. As of today, this doesn't include ROH. So AEW Dark is going away. Just the other day, we were talking about Dark Elevation going away. Now AEW Dark is going away. And quite honestly, I actually think of this as a positive. I really do. I think AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation, for the longest time, it was there just to pad records, right? And I think, for the most part, AEW was using this as like a recruiting tool. AEW was using Dark as a way to bring in indie talent who weren't signed to any full-time deals and giving them the chance to be exposed to a wider audience, which I think for the most part was a decent strategy, right? I think I understood their vision. However, my biggest complaint about AEW Dark was that you're not signing these people to full-time deals. You're not signing these people to deals at all. You're taking a look at them. And that just makes it easier for other companies to swoop in and sign them. And for those who don't know, Kylan King was somebody who used to be in AEW. She went to Impact. Now she's holding championship gold over there. Fallon Henley and Kiana James are both people who appeared on AEW Dark. Now they're in NXT, and they're doing extremely well in NXT. Now, I'm not saying that getting rid of Dark permanently is a good thing, because I do think there is actually some benefits to having AEW Dark. But I think at the end of the day, there needs to be a different strategy for AEW Dark, and I would like to see it come back in hopes of AEW securing a streaming deal with Warner Bros. Discovery. I would love to see them on the Max streaming platform. We all know that by this point. If you guys didn't know, All In is expected to be their first live event. That hasn't been announced yet, but that seems to be very likely. The only question mark that I have here is ROH, but at the end of the day, I think Tony Khan can use ROH as the replacement for AEW Dark, and that way it won't be too big of a deal. Obviously, they have the Honor Club streaming app, but altogether, AEW Dark and Dark Elevation going away, I think it is a little bit of a positive, but really the overall optics of this announcement or this deal is that AEW has a really strong committed relationship from their TV partner, which, if anybody who knows this from me, I really value the business aspect of pro wrestling, the TV negotiations, streaming rights, things like that. Those are things I love talking about. So I'm just glad to see AEW, whether I'm a huge fan or not of the weekly product, right? Maybe some things in creative don't really entertain me, but I'm glad to see not only are they having a good job being done, selling tickets, but they have this communication with their TV partners that allows them to really make big things happen. I expect AEW and Warner Bros. Discovery to continue working together for a long time. Guys, Nick Khan talking about Endeavor and their involvement in WWE. So they just held their quarterly earnings. They did a little Q&A. And some really interesting stuff came out of it. But basically, Nick Khan was talking about his relationship with Endeavor and how this deal with Endeavor isn't new. Obviously, those who follow WWE knew WWE was partnered with Endeavor quite a bit before the merger. But basically, he said that fans and investors should not have any expectations as far as Endeavor going into the booking or creative. He says, I can certainly represent emphatically to you on the creative side that there's no one at Endeavor or the UFC that has any interest in trying to interfere with that in any way whatsoever. I think Dana White would also represent to you that never or almost never. I don't know the specifics, but never would be my guess. Have the Endeavor folks told him you should do this match or you should do it this way? That's not what they do. That's not what they say they do. And that's not what they're going to do. He instead spoke about leveraging Endeavor's expertise on growing revenue and building the business both internally and domestically. And obviously that makes a lot of sense. When you look at Endeavor, I think it's been pretty clear that they don't really want to actually change the WWE's product, and they don't want to change the UFC's product. They're looking at this from the perspective of how much money can we actually make. Now, what I don't think Nick Khan will talk about is if WWE starts to really lose their spark, which I don't think is going to happen, because realistically, even with bad creative, WWE does pretty damn well as a business. But let's just say WWE goes on a hot streak of really, really, really bad shows, really bad creative. Nick Khan won't confirm this. And I don't even know if Nick Khan would ever talk about this, but I do have to wonder if Ari Emanuel and Endeavor would ever come out and say, look, you know, this product is not creatively good. We're going to change it up. We're going to bring in this person. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Is that going to happen? I don't know. I don't think they will, but I'm just saying I think it's always a possibility. Nonetheless, we're going to keep it moving. Guys, the WWE Women's Tag Team division is super interesting right now. I don't know if I'm happy about this. I don't know if I'm upset about this, because I just think there's it's pointless when I see WWE not vacating the women's tag team championship belts in NXT. So for those who don't know, if you missed WWE NXT, Katana Chance, Kaden Carter versus Isla Dawn and Alba Fire. Both of them got drafted. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter got drafted to Raw. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn got drafted to SmackDown. Now, Raquel and Liv Morgan are on Raw. They currently hold the women's tag team championship belts. Alba Fire and Isla Dawn won the NXT tag team championship belts, and they're going to be moving to SmackDown. And instead of WWE doing two different women's tag team divisions, which I think is a terrible idea, by the way, that is not the solution to this, in my opinion. But the idea is WWE is building towards a merger. And if you guys remember the original women's tag team championship belts, the idea was you can go to Raw, you could go to SmackDown, you could go to NXT. They have to be defended everywhere. WWE did that because they don't actually have a legitimately built up women's tag team division. I understand it. I don't agree with it. WWE merging the women's tag team championship belts and then retiring the NXT women's tag team belts, essentially that's what's going to happen. If WWE really wants their women's tag team division to flourish, in my opinion, I think WWE really just needs to build up tag teams. I feel like they really need to build up tag teams, because the thing is, and WWE is not offering clarification here, which I think is a little bit frustrating to me. You have undisputed tag team champions for both brands, or are we going to have somebody vacate the belts, right? Is Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens going to be exclusive to Raw, or are they also going to be appearing on SmackDown, right? The NXT women's tag team belts can appear on all three brands, but now you're having people who don't belong on Raw, or people who don't belong on SmackDown. I don't know how I feel about the women's tag team division. My belief is that WWE is going to merge those titles, and it's only going to be between Raw and SmackDown. I think NXT is going to be far removed from the women's tag team division. In fact, I would go as far as saying maybe the tag team division is just completely gone, and then they just include the mid-card title that we've been talking about for the last year or so, which I think at the very least that's what they can do. But it looks like WWE is not going to actually have a brand split when it comes to the women's tag team championship belts. And I don't know if I like that. I know for a fact I don't like it for the men's tag team division. If they go that route, I know for a fact I probably won't enjoy that for the women's tag titles. At the end of the day, you have a lot of people who are not on TV that could build a legitimate tag team and then actually be on TV for that reason. But for some reason, WWE chooses not to do so. I'm sure this is a lot more complicated than I'm even picturing it, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't sit right with me. Guys, WWE has a new signing. In fact, they announced it themselves. WWE has brought back Eddie Dennis. If you guys don't know who Eddie Dennis is, he used to be in NXT UK. Obviously, this is a really interesting thing considering I have been talking about NXT Europe possibly being canceled. I'm 100% convinced that WWE does not have plans to move forward with NXT Europe. And I honestly hope that I'm wrong, but WWE just announced on their LinkedIn page that Eddie Dennis has returned to the company. Just the other day, we were talking about Shaw Samuels being backstage at the Performance Center, and WWE kept a lot of their European talent on NXT. Noam Dar brought back the Heritage Cup. I feel like WWE NXT is about to become like this super hybrid international wrestling show with all of this international talent. I mean, JD McDonough just got called up to Raw, but you still have Gallus, you have Joe Coffey, you have Tyler Bate, you have Noam Dar, you have Axiom, who's formerly known as A-Kid. You have all of this talent, and I know there's more that I'm forgetting, but at the end of the day, it looks like NXT is really becoming this international show. Not to mention they just brought in Dragon Lee as well. I have a feeling that NXT Europe is gone. Like I said, I'm convinced that NXT Europe won't be a thing. You keep the international talent on NXT, you start developing them, getting them ready for the main roster. You can have performance centers across the world, but I think ultimately with WWE keeping so much international talent on NXT, they have Noam Dar, the Heritage Cup. You bring back Eddie Dennis, who used to work for NXT UK. He was released. He was one of the people that were part of the mass releases. Now he's back in the company as a writer and coach for NXT. Yeah, I'm convinced NXT Europe isn't going to be a real thing. I don't know how I feel about that, but if this means that NXT in America is going to have a loaded roster, if this means that WWE is going to start bringing back some of those talent that were released, if this means that WWE is going to look at Latin America, look at Japan, and actually treat them with respect by bringing them in and doing some cool stuff with them, I wouldn't be opposed to that. What do you guys think? I want to know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.